Hey everyone, this is Dan and Mike, the co-founders of AnywhereCam, coming to you with our first co-founder podcast from Colorado here. Mike, do you want to maybe just introduce yourself a little bit and tell everyone about your background and how AnywhereCam got started?
Okay, yeah, I'm Mike Blecka originally from Fort Morgan, Colorado, where AnywhereCam was born. Co-founder, came up with the idea of AnywhereCam, kind of just trying to solve a problem to generate some revenue through COVID. Realized that there's a lot of people in remote areas that don't have a realistic solution for surveillance, keeping an eye on things in remote areas. And AnywhereCam was born. So my background is in the music industry. As you see behind me, been part of the music industry since I was like 17. Built a company that still exists today. We produce 500 plus concerts a year all over the world. And that is been my life until AnywhereCam. It was kind of a side hustle for the first couple of years. And then when Dan joined in 23 and it looked like maybe it could actually turn into something real, and so I decided to step away from the concerts and try to help grow AnywhereCam in like 2024. So for the last 2 years, just been slinging cameras and building a brand.
Yeah, cool. I think you're selling yourself short on the story. I think it's super cool. Like Mike, he's a modest guy, but you had the concert production company that's doing concerts, all over the place, and like good sized concerts, like festivals and concerts in Major League Baseball stadiums, stuff like that. And then when the pandemic hit, the concert industry is like one of the first things to immediately get shut down overnight. And you've got a whole team of people looking at you like, what are we going to do? And so then you put the word out in Northeast Colorado that you had a whole team of audiovisual experts and they're ready to do anything that people needed. And one of the most common requests that came back was from like ranchers who wanted to keep an eye on livestock and equipment but on a property the size of a ranch. I mean, you had some trials and failures out there, right?
Yeah, it all started a good friend of mine, Philip. I think partially because he needed cameras and partially he's a good friend and knew I needed work. And so he said, yeah, come out and put some cameras on my property. And we went out there and we tried a couple off-the-shelf solutions, and they either didn't work well enough, were too complicated, or too expensive to implement. And so after a few failures, crashing his internet and then his phones didn't work, or having a extension cord ran 50 feet and then somebody drives over it and unplugs the router, whatever it was. A lot of trial and error. And then at the same time, I was still on the concert schedule. I was still, couldn't go to bed till 1 a.m. My wife was teaching, my kids were going to school. My wife was teaching from home. So I was still up until 1 a.m. because my body was on concert time. And so I just started searching the internet and be like, there's got to be a better way. And I realized that there really wasn't a turnkey solution. And my buddy Philip, he can, drive anything, farm anything, fix anything, fly anything. Incredibly gifted person with everything except for technology. And so my whole thought process was, I got to make this thing work well, consistently, in any environment, but at the end of the day, it has to be easy enough to install, use, and operate that Philip can use it. And that was kind of the guiding light at the beginning of AnywhereCam was how to make it good enough without making it complicated or expensive.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty cool origin story. And now, just so viewers know what we're talking about, like the products that AnywhereCam makes, it's a solar powered 4G cellular enabled video surveillance camera. So all you need is sunlight and cell signal. You just take it out of the box and screw it into a wall or a fence post or whatever the case may be, and you're immediately up and running with live video surveillance anywhere as long as there's sunlight and cell signal. So that's just a little bit of context about what we're talking about. And I met Mike back in 2023. I was asked to be a judge at a startup pitch competition, and Mike was one of the startups that was doing a pitch. And when he, well, you didn't even realize it was a pitch competition, right, Mike?
I did not. Trey, the guy who was putting on the pitch competition, asked me if I would come. All I saw was he's like, "Hey, can you come to this thing?" And sometimes I have attention focusing issues, and so I was like, "Yeah, whatever, I'll be there." And he's like, "Yeah, I think AnywhereCam would be perfect for this." And at the time, AnywhereCam had like little to a handful of customers. It wasn't a full 360-degree operation by any means. So I was like, "Yeah, Trey, I'll be there." He's like, I really think you should come." Okay, cool. So I just thought I was going to show the product to some people. And then I showed up and there was like 100, 200, I don't know, it was 100 people in a tent, and a tent. We weren't camping, but it was like 100 people in like an event tent, and like a board, like a, presentation, board, judges sitting there. You were one of them. And I was like, oh, and then everybody else has like a PowerPoint, and I'm like, well, I have a logo on a USB drive and a camera. I guess I'll come up with a quick presentation real quick. So all I could think of was, well, the coolest part of AnywhereCam at that moment was that they're super easy and to set up. And so I decided my presentation would be start setting up a camera and then talk to the judges and explain what the product was and where the company was at, where we were going, while I was setting up a camera. And so just kind of, once again, out of necessity, I had to have a presentation. Didn't want to look like an idiot. And so that's what I did. And then I think it very subconsciously sent the message of what AnywhereCam was at the core. And that was kind of cool.
Yeah. Well, as judges, we had like a rubric that we had to score everybody on. And because you were caught off guard and didn't know that there was even like a rubric of things you were supposed to be hitting, you didn't win the competition. We had to judge against you for that. But when you demoed the product, I was working in the natural resources industry at the time, where the company I was working for, we had like wells out in, the middle of nowhere in Kansas and Arizona. And, it was really hard for us to know what was going on the ground at those wells. And so when you demoed that camera, like my mind was blown. I was like, oh my God, I know like every oil and gas well in America needs one of these. And it's not just oil and gas wells. It's like all kinds of infrastructure and, agriculture, governments. There's just so many applications. So I ended up leaving my job and just jumping over to AnywhereCam because I was so like blown away. I didn't realize that going to that startup pitch competition that day was going to be like a life-changing thing for me. And it's cool the way it's worked out.
Yeah, you probably didn't know how much work you were setting yourself up for. You had a pretty good job there at the other company where, I think it was probably a pretty controlled job. Like you knew what you were supposed to do, and now you come over to AnywhereCam and you're like, oh, every day is different. Oh, I don't know what's going to happen. Like where are we going to go tomorrow? Which is awesome and fun, but I bet it's incredibly different than the job you were at.
Yeah, I mean, it's way different, but all the stuff you just mentioned is exactly why it's fun. Every day is different, constantly trying to solve problems, new things popping up, and it's just never, it's not like a boring corporate job working at AnywhereCam and growing it. It's super fun. And it's especially cool that we're based out of Fort Morgan, which is a town that I'm guessing most people watching this have never heard of. Can you like paint a little bit of a picture of where AnywhereCam is headquartered? Because it's pretty different than where you would expect a tech startup to come from.
Right. I like to call it the technology center of Northeast Colorado. It's really a hub of high-tech innovation. It's a town of, I think we're at about 12,000 people now. It's a farming factory town, a little bit over an hour northeast of Denver, and on the plains of Colorado. And it's was built by farmers, ranchers. We have a sugar factory. We have a meat packing plant. We have a cheese factory. A lot of blue collar, hardworking people here. A lot of people move here from immigrants move up here for the work. So it's just filled with hardworking individuals. A lot of families have been here for decade after decade, um, and multi generational families. So we have a small community that most everyone knows of each other, and I think it's really helped us to develop our company with those same values in mind. Is like you got to treat our customers as if we would they were our neighbor, which is kind of how you have to do business in a small town, which is a positive, but a lot different than where most tech startups come from, where it's one of the coasts and you're just a small piece to a giant puzzle, and we're a small piece in a small puzzle. So it's pretty cool. I like it.
Yeah, there's not a lot of other venture-backed tech startups in Fort Morgan, believe it or not.
I'm gonna go out
And
on a limb and say that we are probably the only high tech venture backed startup in Morgan County currently, at least. I don't know what else has come from here, but the last we had a couple NFL football players come from here. We've had Glenn Miller, the famous trombone player, came from Fort Morgan, but I don't think a lot of high tech e-commerce companies have about popped up in Fort Morgan over the last few years.
until now, yeah. Um, and you heard a cool stat the other day about like the impact that we're having in Fort Morgan with hiring people in Fort Morgan. Yeah,
Yeah,
what about that?
uh, the economic impact of a company is much different in a large metro area versus a small environment like Fort Morgan. So there's some formula that you can say one job in Morgan County is equivalent to the economic impact of so many jobs in Denver or Los Angeles or anywhere, or maybe somewhere smaller than here. But we did notice, or we did put our current situation, our current employee count, and into this formula and realize that we have the AnywhereCam currently has the same economic impact on our county and our local environment as a company that had 450 employees approximately in the Denver metro area, which is pretty awesome to see. We feel like a small company, but we're making pretty large impact in our current economy, current um, uh, environment, and that's really cool. It's definitely not something we focus on. We don't focus on how many people we hire and how, can they be high paying jobs, but it is a really cool side benefit to what we've created at AnywhereCam, and that's something that I'm very passionate about. Being from a small community, I'm on the Economic Development Corporation. Volunteered, been in many boards. A couple of our other employees do the same thing, and so it's really cool side added bonus side benefit to AnywhereCam is being able to really help a community that has been very supportive of us as well.
Yeah, and in my opinion, having our company headquartered in Fort Morgan has been a huge advantage for us as a startup because, you know, Fort Morgan is a lot less expensive than the Bay Area when you're a startup, and you have to make every dollar go as far as you can. So keeping our overhead relatively low, thanks to being in Fort Morgan, has been super helpful to us. Um, Also, like when we have a job posting out there, we found it to be relatively painless to hire local talent. And I think part of that is because there's not a lot of like cool tech startups in Fort Morgan. So we're kind of a fun, exciting company to work for compared to some of the other options. And I think that works to our advantage. And then also, you know, like if we were in like San Francisco or New York and we needed to build out like a customer support team, I would imagine it would be pretty hard to do that and keep costs under control. And and outsourcing it to like the Philippines or something would be attractive if we were from, Silicon Valley. But because we're in Fort Morgan, we can hire local people to work for us doing customer support. And that's been a huge advantage for us because our customers really love being able to pick up the phone and know that they're going to talk to someone here in Colorado who understands what they're trying to do with our cameras. They understand us because we're speaking pretty good English, I would say. And it's just being in Fort Morgan in a small town has actually been overall really great as a startup.
Yeah, I think there's even other benefits of, as we were expanding about a year ago, the place I'm at, which is our original office, we knew that we were outgrowing it, and we were able to find a realistic, quick expansion solution, and now twice we're starting another expansion in that same facility, and starting to look at what the next phase is. And that's not something I don't think you would be able to find. Is I was able to go and say, talk to people in the community and say, here's an issue that we know we're going to have or we're experiencing right now, and we're able to find a realistic, a flexible, realistic solution to just physically having to need more space for inventory and personnel. And then also just little things like the UPS guy, like he can shoot us a text and say, hey, I'm running late, so you have a little bit longer to fulfill orders. So normally if an order comes in after the cutoff time on, through our ordering system, we don't send it out till the next day. But if something comes in and the UPS guy, John, has said, shot a text saying, hey, I'm going to be there at 5:15, we can get a couple more orders out. Or he shows up, we'd be like, we got an overnight rush order that somebody had to get in. Can you hang out? He's like, yeah, no problem. And we chat for 5 minutes and he waits for the package, or we get a huge shipment of material in, or cameras in, inventory in, and we get a heads up from the FedEx gal, hey, prepare for us at 10 a.m. and stuff like that. That just kind of cool. The community we're all working together, just to all do what we're trying to succeed every day. It's something that I assume does not happen in larger.
Yeah, and I think the fact that the company comes from Fort Morgan gives us a different perspective on, remote locations. I don't want to say that Fort Morgan's in the middle of nowhere, but compared to like a major metro area, Fort Morgan is off the beaten path. It's like flyover country, it's a place most people have never heard of, but because that's where our company is from, I think it's made us very aware of the opportunity in these overlooked places that are literally overlooked. Like there's no remote surveillance there because it's never been possible before. And now with this new technology, we can put cameras in these places that we know there's valuable equipment and there's stuff that matters a lot to people in these remote areas. And that's kind of our specialty, don't you think?
Yeah, I think that like the whole one man's trash is another man's treasure, is pretty valid here. But also just the physical, I guess, benefit that putting cameras in remote locations has been so far to AnywhereCam is if somebody's valuing having a camera so that they don't have to walk 2 blocks to a storage facility or something to make sure everything's okay, or keep an eye on their animals, like driving home, like, you can look in your backyard, make sure that your dog's okay. So do you have a camera? Yes, but you also own a camera company. So but you wouldn't have to have the camera to keep an eye on your dog in your backyard. But if you're like, do I want to keep an eye on my cattle that are 4 hours from here? The value of that solution to your problem has just increased greatly. And so I think it's really been a benefit that we're solving a problem. It's a bit to benefit for 2 reasons. One, we're solving a problem that is overlooked, like you said. A lot of people haven't noticed that this problem even exists. And two, it makes it an easier sell, if you will, because we were like, yeah, of course I don't want to drive 4 hours to see if there's water on my tank. Absolutely. If it was 4 minutes versus 4 hours, I'd much rather be solving the problem for the 4 hour people, and that's what we're doing.
Yeah, and I think for most people, the first time they see our product, the very first thing that pops into their mind is security camera. And there's definitely we have a lot of customers that for sure use our products as security cameras. But the use cases you just mentioned, you didn't none of those had to do anything with security. So what are like how do you think of our products and what are some of the ways that customers are using them?
Well, kind of going back to like solving problems for people, if somebody wants to have an added sense of security or create security, a camera is one way to do it. But the guarantee that that will keep that item, thing, person secure that you're trying to keep an eye on is not 100%. But if you're wanting to use it, the camera to survey, to look at something so that you don't have to be physically there to look at it, putting a camera there and being able to look at it anywhere you're at in the world is almost 100% success rate of being able to solve the problem that you got the camera for. So that's the way I look at it. Like, you know, our cameras are not security guards. So if you're buying it for security, you have to understand that, and not, it might not keep that item secure. It can help, it sure will help, because it can give you a notification that then you can call the cops or your neighbor or whatever. But there's not a very high success rate that it's going to stop whatever you're trying to secure it from. But on the other side, you'll be very pleasantly surprised how often the camera helps you if you're using it as a time and money saving tool. And so I think it's just the way that we're trying to show people that other use cases, and people are coming up with them all the time. Our customers always have these really cool use cases for the cameras, and that's what we love, because then it's like a 5-star guaranteed 5-star review at that point, as opposed to I bought this camera so that my car didn't get stolen, and then my car got stolen. Well, the camera can't stop the car from getting stolen. I'm sorry, it just can't. It's not physically possible. So yeah, I think it's just a lot more happy customers when they put their cameras in for something that we feel strongly about, which is the surveillance camera, and it's a tool to use.
Yeah, and we've seen a lot of people in agriculture, especially people that own cattle, during January, February, March each year. It's calving season, and all these cows are having babies. And traditionally, like cattle ranchers have to get up multiple times in the night and walk out to their calving barn to take a look and see what's going on. Because if something goes wrong with the labor and delivery process, they could potentially lose the mother cow and the baby cow, which is a huge financial hit. So, it's been a huge time and money and convenience factor for cattle ranchers. In the construction industry, we've sold a ton of cameras to construction with, there's managers who are managing multiple construction sites or projects at the same time, and they can't be everywhere at once. But if they throw a camera up at each project, now all of a sudden they can monitor what's happening at every job site, which is a huge time and money saving use for them. Oil and gas too, and solar, both traditional and renewable energy. All these sites are out far away from everything, and so being able to check in on them before you roll a truck all the way out to the site, just to be able to survey it first, see did it rain yesterday? Is it all muddy out there? Can we even get a truck out there today? You can check first with our cameras, and so it's been cool to see all the different ways that people are using them.
Yeah, I love hearing about the use cases and the unique ways that people are using our cameras to help them in their daily lives. That's the best part. And a lot of times you don't hear the good things. You hear the happy customers. You hear unhappy customers. So every time we get to hear happy customers and success stories, and man, it really saves me time, or it saved a baby calf, or whatever, help me be able to call the police because I was able to see something. All those use cases is really another added benefit to what we've created here at AnywhereCam.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting too, like it's not just these like really remote locations that are using the cameras. We're recording this today, right during the middle of the World Cup, which is being hosted in the US and Canada and Mexico. But we had, I won't say the name of the city just to protect their confidentiality as a customer, but a major metropolitan US city ordered a bunch of cameras from us specifically for the World Cup, just because they've got so many people coming into the city and, milling around in parks and whatever, and places where there's no power and no Wi-Fi, and they just wanted to be able to monitor everything. And so that was pretty cool to be, to have our cameras be part of the World Cup in a small way.
Yeah, we actually have another camera that I think about all the time. We say remote and rural areas, but we have one on a harbor in New York City, where you think is like the most metropolitan high. There's power Wi-Fi everywhere in every square inch of that. But AnywhereCam is the easiest way to get a camera wherever you need it for whatever reason. And so we're talking right now about the 4G cameras, but the other cool part is we have Wi-Fi cameras, and we're working on connectivity across the board so that it doesn't matter. Everyone's situation is different. So you might have Wi-Fi in 9 places that you need a camera and not in that 10th place. And until AnywhereCam, what we created here, you would have to probably be running 2 platforms, 2 apps. And so us being able to have that mix and match solution, it doesn't matter the connectivity or power options you have at the location, or no matter how many locations you have. We have lots of customers that have 30, 40 sites where they have a couple cameras on them, and some of them might have power, some of them might have Wi-Fi, some of them don't. And then, but to the person looking at the app or now on the PC viewing the cameras, it doesn't matter to that person every day how that camera is connected and how that camera is working. It's just working and it's easy. And so that's the other, the World Cup people, the Manhattan people, it's just an easy, economical solution to getting a camera anywhere you need it, and knowing that the next one you need you can get anywhere camera. It's going to work no matter if it's the same or different location, scenario, and environment.
Yeah, that's what we see a lot of is people, they've never had like a solar powered cellular camera before, and so they don't know if it's going to work or not, and they get one and they try it and see if it works, and then it works and they love it, and it's saving them a ton of money compared to the cost of running power and Wi-Fi to that location. And so then we see people come back to us and purchase more and more cameras, which is really cool. That's like the best review possible is when people come back.
And that it's possible. You don't have to invest thousands of dollars or get 20 cameras. Let's say you need 20 cameras. If this works, I'm going to need 20 cameras. You can buy 1 or 2 and try it, and then buy the 18 more. And it's really no different than if you bought all 20 up front. And some people do both. Some people do buy 20 up front. Some people buy 1 or 2 and then expand. But it doesn't matter because everyone is different. And we want it to be as flexible, versatile of a solution as possible. The other thing that this makes me think of is that it's pretty cool that the very large majority of the cameras that people are installing, new customers or old customers adding cameras, are in places that there's never been a camera before. So I just think of like the smiles on their face of like, whoa, this has never been possible before. And so that's pretty cool that the majority of, people aren't taking their old camera off and putting our new camera on. Some are, and we're happy for that too. But people are putting a camera and being able to see remotely, look at that whatever they're trying to keep an eye on, and it hasn't been possible before, not to them at least, and that's exciting, and we love hearing that too.
Yeah, for sure. And I think everybody these days is extremely familiar with Ring. Everyone's got a doorbell camera these days, and Ring is great when you've got power and Wi-Fi like at your house. And I think a key thing for AnywhereCam is educating people that there is a solution even when there's no power and Wi-Fi available. I think most people don't know about 4G solar powered surveillance cameras. And we're not trying to compete with Ring. Ring is a great company. They dominate places that have power and Wi-Fi. We're, like you said, we're putting cameras in places where there are no cameras because it's never been possible before. in a lot of cases, people just don't even know that it's possible. So I think that's a huge opportunity for AnywhereCam, is just to get the word out there that 4G solar powered surveillance cameras are a totally viable option.
And they're easy. A lot of people, I think people might know that they exist, but a lot of people get very intimidated by technology and be like, "Oh, this is going to be such a nightmare to set up," or "I'm not going to understand it." And as long as you have a smartphone, I mean, you're going to need a smartphone now. You have to have a computer or a smartphone, and a few minutes of time is all it takes. We try to make it really easy. That's one thing we're always trying to improve on. And customer feedback's been great. We've learned a lot in my of maybe some hiccups of the setup process or using the camera, but it's easy, and so people don't need to be intimidated. Don't be intimidated. It's super simple. We have customers of all types, all walks of life. Some very technical savvy, some not at all, and they've all been able to figure it out. And if not, we have a great support team that can help you. So yeah, we try to make it super easy, and so that there's no intimidation or worry about setting it up or being able to understand how to use it.
Yeah, it feels like every call we get from people in the agriculture industry, like every call starts with, "I'm not very tech savvy, but I'm interested in your cameras." And in my mind, I'm always like, yeah, you might not be that tech savvy, but you probably know way more about animal health and animal behavior and uh, just caring for animals, things that I have no background in. So I respect their knowledge base, but I always reassure them, like, guys, don't worry about it. Like, these are right out of the box, super easy to set up and install. Like, I'm sure you can do it. It's not going to be a problem.
Yeah, it's just a common misconception. They've heard, the horror stories from maybe a friend or a neighbor, be like, "Oh, I got this camera and it was so expensive and it never worked and it broke all the time. I had to go fix it and reset it." And so I think just common misconception that it's going to be complicated and it's going to be confusing and it's probably not going to work well. But if AnywhereCam's not those, it's not confusing. It works great, and almost anyone can figure it out. And so I think that once they get past that, just learning that a solar 4G powered camera exists, and then also getting past the worry that it might be complicated, and then you can see that it's economical. And those three things are usually what have stopped people in the past from getting a camera in a place that they really need a camera or want a camera. So being able to assure them that it's going to be easy to set up, it's going to be easy to use, it's going to work well, and it's not going to break the bank. Once if they can get past all of those worries, they're usually hooked, and then come back, "Well, that worked great. I want another one." And that's what we love hearing.
Yeah, we're just trying to be like the fastest, easiest, most affordable way to get video surveillance up and running. And I think we've accomplished that.
Yes, always trying to get better, but I think we have accomplished that. We've sure tried hard.
Yeah, it hasn't been easy. So kind of on that note, when it comes to running a startup, for me, this is my first time being in the driver's seat of a startup along with you. We're driving the bus together here, but what's something that you've learned or experienced running a startup like AnywhereCam that you thought was interesting?
It's given me so much respect for every other company that has become a household name, because yes, the majority of them had to have gone through some or all of the things that we've had to go through. It's a struggle. It's on all different. Every day is a new day. That a different good or bad thing, or multiple good or bad things, are going to happen. But I think that the one thing that I've learned is that it's got to be one of the hardest things in business to build a brand and to succeed at that. But it's also one of the most rewarding things, because we truly every day get to decide where AnywhereCam is going. Most of the time it's where the customers have asked it to go, but because that makes sense. And that's what we love to do, is solve the problems and make, people happy with our product. But I think that's the one thing I've learned the most is it's not easy to do, but it's super rewarding.
Yeah, I would agree with that for sure. Um, you can build something that's completely awesome, but if you haven't built the brand and like letting people know that it exists and earning their trust, it doesn't matter whatever you've built. Like you have to get the word out there and have people trust you when they're making a purchasing decision. Um,
You gotta think
I
of
think,
everything. It's hard to think of everything. It's hard to, and when you think you've thought of everything, then something curveballs. You're like, oh, why didn't I think of that? Just everything from, you know, the financial side to sourcing product to the supply chain to shipping to logistics to employees to, yeah, everything, packaging. Then then how do you get the camera? How do you get people to know about the camera? And once they do know and they do buy the camera, that just starts like phase four of the process, right? Like you have to build the camera, you have to get the word out, you have to sell the camera, you have to get it to them, and then you have to support them through their post buying life. And it's a lot of things. It's like you get through it's like running a marathon, and then you get done with the marathon, you're exhausted, and they're like, "What are you stopping for? You got to run this marathon again." You're like, "Oh, I thought I only had to run one marathon," and then you just keep doing it over and over again. A lot of marathons.
yeah, I don't think it'll ever end. Um, I think for you and me too, it's been an interesting experience growing the company from at first it was just you and me. Um, and the cool thing was we could just make a decision and it's just you and me and we just implement whatever decision we made. Then we started hiring people and now we've grown our team where we actually have like proper departments. We've got a customer support department, we got fulfillment, we've got like our IT kind of staff and then you and me in like the executive roles. And I think we've had to become much more aware now of if we make a decision, it doesn't impact only us. It cascades throughout the rest of AnywhereCam. And we have to be like hyper aware of if we make a change, what is this going to do to the other teams in our company? And so we have to think, multiple steps ahead now, and look at things through multiple other people's eyes, which I think is good. It's like a natural growing pain that AnywhereCam is going through, but it's a good sign that we're having those kind of conversations now.
Yeah, it's like sending your kid off to college. Yeah, like you have to trust that, like they're gonna do the right thing, and that all of their friends are gonna not point them in the wrong direction, and all of their professors are gonna teach them all the good things. I feel it's like that. Like for so long, it's just been all you, and then you have to figure out how to like let go. And most of the time, with just like when your kid goes off to college, they come back as a better person and they're more intelligent and they're more educated. And so, but that letting go moment is the toughest part, and the trust is the toughest part. But when you finally do like embrace that and let it go, it comes back 10 times better. You're like, oh, that's how I feel with our company. When it was just me and you, we'd make a decision. It was either right or wrong. We had only ourselves to blame, but we had nobody else we had to trust. And we were able to fix it very quick because it was only me or you. And so if we both signed off on it, we're good. But now that we have all these other people, I feel like we're probably making less mistakes because there's so many more minds being able to like, well, hold on, before we do that, we got to do this or whatever it may be. And so we're much better and stronger as a team, but it has been a little bit of growing pains of figuring out how to not just be a duo, be a team now. And so I'm excited for the next step too. It's like when the team becomes a bigger team and teams have teams under them, that's going to make it even a greater outcome.
Yeah, for sure. I totally agree. We should talk about that in the next episode of our podcast is like, how we've grown our team and especially with like, I don't want to say clash, but like with Gen Z entering the workforce, you always see on social media people struggling with that. But for us, it's been a great experience. So we should talk about that in the next podcast episode, what it's been like for us. But
I think we've totally learned how to have different generations work together, and everybody's focused on their strengths, but everyone has to, yeah, it has been a challenge, but I think we've nailed it. I'm excited with what we've been able to do. Um, Having people from multiple generations, come together in this project, I think it's made us grow and progress quicker for sure.
Yeah, totally. All right. Well, I think that pretty much wraps it up for our very first episode of the co-founder podcast here at AnywhereCam. Hopefully, everybody enjoys watching this and gets something out of it. We'd love to hear from people. Do you have any thoughts or comments on things we discussed today? We're going to try to keep this going at regular intervals, so keep an eye out for more episodes. And if there's ever anything you want to know about AnywhereCam, feel free to visit our website, which is anywhere.cam, as in camera, not .com, anywhere.cam. So yeah, Mike, thanks for joining me on the podcast today. This was a fun conversation as usual.
It was fun. It was like we just recorded like a lot of what we talk about. Normally, we're just now recording it, so it'd be fun to look back on years from now and see what we said right and wrong.
Yeah, I agree. All right. Well, thanks, Mike. And thanks everyone for watching. Keep an eye out for future episodes.